Today's headline is Sail Out of Day into Moonlight. Balloonists float through sunset glories. The subheadline says, Member of Herald staff tells of adventure. Pilot J.C. Mars of Oakland proves more than master of big gas bag and perfect ascension. This article was written by one of the passengers. It says, the glories of a sunny Southern California afternoon with all the world spread below us, then a magnificent prospect at sunset with its warmth of color as the big warm disk disappeared behind the western ocean and a coastline that was visible from Santa Barbara to San Juan Capistrano as we hovered over the outskirts of Redondo. The twilight, with the deepening purples on the waters and the hills, with only a faint outline to the east and north for the snow-clad peaks of the Sierra Madre and San Bernardino ranges, and after that, a sail home in the liveliest moonlight imaginable, with all the world so far away that it seemed almost as unbelievable as a dim dream. That was the panorama of beauty shown yesterday afternoon and evening by pilot J.C. Mars of the Oakland Aero Club and his charming wife, who accompanied and assisted him in the big balloon Los Angeles. The ascent was made from Huntington Park Balloon Field at 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon. The descent was made in a plowed field near Manchester Avenue between Main Street and South Park Avenue at 6:25 o'clock last evening. It was made so gently that when the basket struck the ground, there was less jar experienced by the 6 passengers, which included the pilot and his wife and a party from the Los Angeles Herald, than often is experienced in the start of a streetcar in Los Angeles. Past the mile mark. The highest altitude reached by the balloon to Los Angeles was 5,300 feet, just a tiny bit more than a mile from sea level. This was the height recorded by the aneroid barometer when the big gas bag was nearest to the aviation field at Dominguez, which was the goal pilot Mars was striving to reach. The distance covered in the 2 hours and 25 minutes was about 30 miles. When the start was made at 4 o'clock, the afternoon was as glorious as any winter afternoon ever enjoyed in the Southland. The Earth dropped away, according to the aneroid, about 2,000 feet. Pilot Mars was busy arranging his ropes and sandbags in the basket so that each might be handy to his touch in case of need. No one spoke, but each passenger in the basket seemed to be drinking in the glory of the scene below. 2,000, said the pilot, and we're going toward Boyle Heights. What I want to do is to get down to the aviation field and land there, if the wind will let us. And he got busy with one of the bags of sand. Below us, the farms were marked out like squares and triangles and other geometrical figures on a gorgeous but strangely variegated carpet. To the left, far below, was the city. Its growth and prosperity shone more convincingly to the human eye from this height than any table of figures can show. To the east, stretching out in a long climb of successive peaks, were the snow-clad Sierras, ending abruptly with the thin, sharp point of San Bernardino Mountain. A little to the south was San Jacinto, a giant saddle of white, and crouching close beside it was the glittering summit of Temecula. Long line of shore. Looked the other way, and there was the long line of the surf on the shore of the Pacific and the blue waves of the ocean flashing now and then as the sunlight caught them at the right angle. This was the picture of a lifetime to the passengers, but it was an old story to pilot Mars, and besides that, he was figuring. Still going toward Boyle Heights slowly, he said softly, after the drag rope had been let out and the anchor fixed to the edge of the basket, where it would be under the pilot's hand if it should be needed in a hurry. There was no scare or noise about his preparations, but it gave to the passengers an added sense of security to see how he was getting his aircraft into ship shape before he stopped to say hello or admire the scenery. All set, was the next cheery remark as the big balloon hovered over the Los Angeles riverbed about due east of Vernon. What does the aneroid say now? 2,200, said Mrs. Mars as she looked at the instrument tied to the ropes above the basket. I think if we go up a little, we'll strike a current that will take us out past Aviation Park. That's what we'd better try, said the Oakland man. Look down there, and he pointed to the smokestack of a factory far below. So far below that it looked like the make-believe factory in a child's toy village. See, he said as his hand still pointed, the wind down there is blowing in from the sea. If we can hit a current higher up that will take us beyond and west of Aviation Park, we can get down into the low current and get into the park itself without any trouble. That's what we'll try. And out went some more sand. Watch the aneroid, pilot Mars called to his wife. Going up, was the answer. 2,600 now. Signs of motion lost. Yes, and we've got the current, said the aeronaut as he leaned far over the basket and watched the plumb line index of the drag rope as it showed how fast the balloon was moving and in what direction over the mathematical maze of green fields and brown roads and spots of houses far below. For unless we looked at this drag rope index, we had no sense of motion at all. Our horizon was so vast that we had nothing by which to judge the motion of the balloon. Back over Huntington Park we went, almost straight above the field from which we had ascended 25 minutes before. Then we were treated to a lesson in aeronautics that was new to us, the jockeying of the balloon pilot with his big machine, so ready to answer his beck and call if all is well, and so treacherous if the elements of the air are hostile. Slowly upward we went, and more rapidly toward Aviation Park. There goes one of the dirigibles. Don't you see the shine of the yellow against the black of the grandstand? Exclaimed Mrs. Mars suddenly. Sure enough, far below, and hardly more than a speck, but with a flash of sunlight on a propeller blade now and then, and the sheen of the yellow gas enclosure, we watched the dirigible's flight. We could even watch the descent as the dirigible settled down beside its fellow in the field. Barometer? Queried the pilot as we began to veer off toward Redondo and away from the park. 4,200 came back the answer of his wife. Better go up a little higher, said the pilot. We're getting too far to the right to get back to the park on that lower current. More sand went out, and the earth dropped away still lower. For to our earthbound senses, we had lost all thoughts of motion in our little basket, and the earth was making the strange changes that were sending us from place to place. There goes one of the biplanes, exclaimed one of the passengers, as she pointed again toward the white tent row and the black mass of the grandstand now farther away than ever. Time? Asked the pilot. 5 o'clock was the answer. Barometer was the next question. Mile in the air. 5,300 came back the answer from Mrs. Mars. We could see, even from this distance of more than a mile with the naked eye, that the crowd at the park was thinning. Then the wind veered. We went more rapidly towards the hills of Point Fermin, with the whole map of the harbor below us and then to the left towards Redondo. It seemed fruitless now to try to reach Aviation Park before the spectators had departed for home. The current we were in was bearing us towards the ocean into danger. The west was flaming with a gorgeous sunset. The lofty hills of Catalina were no bar to our vision of the ocean beyond, and it seemed as though we were close enough to Redondo to hit the powerhouse with a pebble or to knock a fly over the roofs of San Pedro. That was an hour rare enough to be remembered for a lifetime. Then the earth came to greet us again. How it was managed, I do not know, but as the shadows of the water deepened and twilight came, we all were too entranced with the beauty all around us to notice what the busy pilot was about. Then came a call. Oh, see, the moon is giving us a shadow on the earth. It's going on ahead of us like a protector, just to pave the way. And sure enough, there was the shadow, and as we passed on silently here and there over reservoir, creek, or irrigation stream, we could see the silver reflection far below. Still sailing on, we came back toward the now glittering lights of the city at 2,000 feet. So said the aneroid when we could catch a glimpse of the register, when the great big bag overhead swayed out of the moonlight's way. All still with us. It was no time for talk. But from below, we could hear even the sounds of conversation. From one rancher's home, we caught the fresh voice of a girl singing Annie Laurie. As we passed over another ranch house, we could see the horses, frightened by our strange appearance, rushing madly about the corral. From the house, they had caught sight of the shimmer of the gas bag in the moonlight. We caught the hearty cry, "Come in and stop a while. We're going to have some dinner. Come on down." Invitation is declined. That sounded good, but we wanted to get near home. Boys below us now, as we drew nearer to the earth, shouted up to us and swarmed after us in a vain endeavor to keep us as we traveled on over the houses and the fields. At 6:20 o'clock, we were close to the southern boundary of the city. There still were 14 bags of ballast in the bag, and little of the gas had been lost. "Shall we try a fight over the city?" asked the pilot. "It will be easy tonight, but it may take until midnight, for we can't come down among the houses." It was hard to say no, but there were business duties, and so we prepared for the descent. "When we go down, hang to the rings on that side," said the pilot. "No one is to leave the bag until I say so." That was all there was to it. We did as he bade us, and at 6:25 o'clock, we were safe once more on terra firma in a plowed field, after alighting so easily that one and all of the passengers rubbed their eyes and looked again to see if it was true. The big bag was there, and in a few minutes, an express wagon that had been keeping track of the flight drove up. The men and boys of the neighborhood lent a helping hand. A half an hour's work, and the balloon was deflated and wrapped up, and the pilot and his nervy little wife and their guests were on their way back to the city in everyday life on a streetcar. This story came from the great state of California, being reported in the Los Angeles Herald of January 18, 1910. Thank you for joining us today. If you want to continue to uncover all of America's lost and forgotten history, now remember before you leave to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and remember to like and comment below. And we'll see you next time on Americana Archives.